Welcome to Trucker Talk. I have a special guest today, Mr. George Shine. I appreciate your time. How are you doing today?
Sir, I'm feeling good, Matthew. I'm just honored to be here to share my insight and how I feel about certain things and my own opinions or um, advantages and disadvantages of what we got going on here.
Okay. Okay. Well, today's discussion, we're going to talk about the inner child. This is a space for self reflection and growth as we explore how our childhood experiences shape us as adults. Question to you, George, is what, when you hear of the term inner child, what comes to mind?
My own opinion, the inner child would be that little child that we all have, whether we admit it or not. We just like this little child that you watch him grow up. Look at what has got this child in this position? What experiences child received or been through to get to this point in life as an inner child? You know, some of it's been negative, some can be positive. So, in inner child, you kind of have to nurture that so that child can grow from those experiences and develop as a functioning adult.
Okay. When I think of inner child, and I guess speaking for myself, I think about, I call it the little Matthew, the, I guess, if things growing up, like I guess affection and stuff like that, that you see, I guess you see, we didn't really get affection like that growing up. So I guess as I've gotten older, I think about like being that young child, how that would be like. But after having a son, I see it just, it just, it was just different. But the inner child, I just, as the inner child is just the smaller version of me. As I've gotten older, as I've gotten older, I've struggled with that inner child because some of the things that I guess I didn't get when I was younger, as I've gotten older, I see that's one of my weaknesses. But the definition of an inner child represents the part of us that holds our early memories, emotions, and beliefs. It's where our childhood joys, fears, and wounds live. Connecting with our inner child can help us heal, break unhealthy patterns, and rediscover joy and creativity. I got this quote card for you. Out of suffering have emerged the strongest souls. Most massive characters are seared with scars. Khalil Gibran. What do you think about that quote?
That's a very, very interesting quote. True to experiences of a lot of people. We sit back and listen to other stories of different people and what they've been through, what they've came through, and what they've had to walk through to get to this point. So those scars are never gone; they're there, but they also help shape and define each individual.
I was gonna say, um, people that's I say people that's been through the most, they they handle things different from other people. It's just all depends on how you handle things, but everybody handle things differently. So, got a question. Do you think of a time your reaction or emotions seem tied to something deeper, like a childhood experience?
I think we all can relate to anything that we've been through as a child, adolescent, or even a young adult. Um, for me, a lot of things that we grew up very poor. We didn't have anything, so there was never. You see kids now. Everybody's got this wish list, and I want this, I want that. So, as I grew up, it's like, well, you never say you wanted it, but it wasn't one of those things. I wish I can have this. You wish you had it, but you knew in our economic condition that we were in, there was no possible way that you can even hope for it, so not wish for it. Just learn to move on and pick up the pieces from where you are. And also, I've learned to appreciate what I already had versus what I already wanted.
Okay. Okay. Well, when I think of a time, trying to think of a time my emotions seem tied to something deep. I can't really think of something, but reflecting on childhood experiences, what's a happy memory from your childhood? How does that make you feel now?
Well, that's the thing about it. I think I probably grew up a little different, not necessarily different, but mentally I'd cope with certain things. And I had, a loving family that, even though we didn't have anything, I'll say we didn't have anything. We didn't have much, but we cherished what we did have. We made do. And even when we didn't have, we knew that, well, we can still work through this thing together and develop that strength from not having to having each other. And that was the thing. As long as we had each other, we were good. We didn't really focus so much on what we did have, but what we had with each other. My sisters, my brothers, and we learned to have each other, and that kind of fulfills some of those say things that we didn't have, but we had each other, so we learned to cherish what we had and focus on that instead of focusing on what we didn't have.
Okay. Well, one of my childhood memories that I think about is when me and my brothers and sister, we would all, I know it sounds crazy, we would go in the woods barefooted, but they had like vines, so we would swing from the vines, and um, it'd be funny because my mom, time we got out of school, as long as we did our homework and stuff, we go outside, go play. But that's what we would do. And by the time it got dark, she'd yelling for us to come in for supper. But I still think about that to this day, and I laugh about it because you can't do that now. With all the, well, I don't, not said all the creatures, but they has the same creatures as then back then, but it's different now.
Well, I
So
think society now also is different because you got there's too many other things to have to focus on and worry about when your kids, go out. Because even when I was coming up, you get a bike for Christmas and you might ride 4 or 5 miles with 4 or 5 other guys that had bikes, and there was no worry about getting kidnapped or getting whatever by
mm,
say stranger. And back then there was not such term as stranger danger. Everybody was, I know him. That's Uncle somebody. That's so and so cousin. Oh, that's Bebop. That's little Tyrone brother. That's his cousin. So you knew everybody, and then of course everybody knew all the kids. So when I was coming up, I used to do. I lived with my granddad quite a bit in the summer. That was like a vacation, so I would go out, had a BB gun, and I used to hunt by myself. And I'd go out in the woods. I might be gone for 3 or 4 hours, but it seemed like it was like all day long. But I'd go out all day, and I'd shoot for 3 or 4 hours, just go out in the woods and hunt. But I just had this little Daisy BB gun, and I could shoot a bird or kill a bird, or I felt safe. Also, when I had my little BB gun, I'm like, I'm strapped now, so I'm good.
he's
I'm strapped. I'm good. You know.
All right, but next question. What's one thing you needed as a child but didn't receive?
Well, that goes back to it again. The one thing I needed, or I say I needed, the one thing we needed was more income.
Okay.
That would have probably satisfied the urge. But what we really needed, and what we got were two different things. Because I say, well, we needed more income, but we learned to utilize what we had.
Hmm.
So it didn't seem like it was that far off. Because you also got to understand, in an economic time where everybody conditions were about the same. So you had a few people that, I mean, they got two TVs because they're all black and white, but then they got a stereo. Well, we may not have had a stereo, but we had a TV. So you didn't have to worry about too much of not able to say, well, we ain't got this, they got that. But you still reach back and cherish those things that you had. And like I said before, you don't focus so much on what we didn't have. We just love what we had.
Right. Now I have to agree with you on that because 6 of us, and we just my mom and dad, they made do with what they had. And God, I mean, we was in church, we was in the going to the Boys and Girls Club and all that. So they basically, I mean, they made do with what they had. So nowadays, the way the kids growing up now, well, it's not the same because they don't really appreciate small, simple, easy. Well, the basic, simple things because they nowadays they tell you what they want to eat, what they want to drink, and stuff like that. It's not like when I was growing up, mama, whatever she laid out, whatever they had out on your plate, that's what you was gonna eat.
Exactly. And that's what I mean. Like so living with my grandparents, it's like, and of course, this is, you got to understand, I'm like twice your age, but when they cooked, it was a meal. You actually had a full course meal. You had starch, your vegetables, your meats, and you learned to eat what was cooked. So, but you also got to look at the times are different now where there are so many varieties. And also you look at the economics position of most people are on the internet. So you watching different things on the internet and how kids respond to certain things now, where it's like, I don't want that. I like this better. Well, I don't want that. Well, so and so don't eat this. It just told me I need to eat this. Well, their mom cooked this. But when we were coming up, whatever was put on the plate, and that's what you ate, because and also there were not many options to eat. It was, economically depressed. You didn't have a choice of 4 or 5 different kinds of cereal. That was one cereal. That was cornflakes. That was it. That's all you ate. You had, canned everything. So everything was pretty much, store bought with the money that you had to buy. And, you bought things that could go a long, long way, where you may buy, now you get a big pack of chicken. Well, back then you can get a pack of chicken, but you might get some beans and make some cornbread. And that's your meal. That's all you're going to eat. And that's all you had. But we've not necessarily spoiled our children to the point. It is an old saying, you say, well, I want my child to have more and better than what I had. But you still have to learn to teach them also to appreciate what you have and respect what you have, because it could be gone. And, at any given point, you realize like, you might have this today, but there's some kids that don't have it. So you always got to cherish and be thankful for what you do have.
Yeah, I think, but I'm guilty of being that generation of parents that gave my son what I didn't have because, my personal opinion, I think that made the children more. What's the proper term? They're
Well,
more.
it made them feel like they had more options. And I don't know what the term would be for
Nope.
that, but that would make them feel like, well, I got options, so I'm going to take option A versus option A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So you got like 100 options, but you choose the better option because you had that opportunity to choose the better option. When the options are thin, or you don't have as many, you're a little bit more decisive in, okay, I need to choose the best option for what I'm looking for. But we still want our children not to necessarily say been where we've been, but that's what put us where we are. We've learned to adapt. We've learned to use those experiences, like going back to the childhood inner child. We've used those experiences, like, you know what, this ain't so bad after all. Even though I could have more,
Right.
I got this, and I'm really happy and satisfied and thankful to be at this point. But you got to look at the kids nowadays. When you got the internet, you got so much going on where it's like they're influenced by just everything else except for what they have in front of them, because they see so much other things, or so many other things out there where they're like, you know what, I got options. This is like the bottom of the barrel option. I need to go to the top of the barrel and get that kind of stuff. So it's just, and it's come from, some of it's slightly too, in my opinion, is the parenting. You just got to raise them to be thankful. Yeah, you don't want them to suffer too badly, but you want to appreciate what you have, and that makes that, it builds that character as well. That way, they're not in the habit of saying, "I won't," because so and so got this. So they get what they get. They're appreciative of it. They might not like it at the time, but they're appreciative of it. And you don't hear a whole lot of back talk about, well, I'm not going to wear these because they're not whatever jeans they're wearing now. They're not this, or they don't have like 4 or 5 holes in them. So uh, I'm not going to wear them. I don't want to buy these because this is not what so and so is wearing. So they're not influenced by too many other people, And back then there was no influencers. That's the thing. There was nothing for them to scare themselves to, because everybody kind of wore a pair of jeans that were, that the one store sold, and that was all you had.
Right.
There wasn't a ton of options to be influenced by.
Right. And I get that, man. I agree with you. We're about to dive into identifying the wounded inner child. A wounded inner child might carry feelings or abandonment, fear, or unworthiness. These wounds can show up as emotional triggers, difficulties in relationships, or limiting beliefs. Got a question. Have you ever noticed any patterns in your life, like overreacting or avoiding conflict or struggling with trust, or that may be connected to your childhood?
I can't think of anything offhand. I think my scenario or my situation may have been slightly different. Trust is something person has to earn your trust, and you trust a person that, to me, that you can uh, confide into. If you, for example, if you can go to the person if you needed shelter from. If you, I remember the scenario. I called myself. I was going to run away from home back when I was little. Of course, I went to my neighbor's house, but that was that trust there that I knew I could go there and be safe. And from a childhood, you don't have that many places that you can go as a child and say, "I'm going to be safe here." But those traumas, they're there because you get, my thing was is when I left, I said, well, it was probably something my mom told me I couldn't do. It's like, well, I'm gonna run away from home. I'm gonna leave. I just got me a little bag and some clothes, and I took off, went right next door to my neighbor house, but I'm running away from home. So I don't have a ton of, say, this bad reflections of childhood, because, like I said, we came from a small family, so we were pretty much close knitted. Because we just relied so much on each other, even because we didn't have anything else to rely on. We had to rely on each other.
Right, right. Well, what I can think of, the only thing I can think of is me overreacting. And when I say overreacting, it's like, I guess, well, be, being the person that I am, when I used to run my mouth and stuff like that. I don't like to be told what to do. And so, and in my experiences, when somebody's trying to give me direction, depending on what the direction is, if I think if I think it's wrong, or if I got my personal opinion on it and I don't like it, I don't want to do it. So I think as a child, and I know my mom, my parents, and them are attest to this, but some things I didn't like doing.
Yeah, which is totally normal. That's a lot of things. There again, like I said earlier, it's like we there was a lot of things I don't think I didn't like doing, but I think when we grew up or were raised, we weren't defiant. We pretty much followed the rules, and I think that's kind of like one of those things where um, it structures you to the point where you kind of like, this is what they said, this is what we're going to do, and that was no that many options. I'm sure there were times where it's like, I'm not going to do this, but I think we had so much freedom as a child because we didn't have much but each other, so we learned to live with each other, and we had that freedom. So we didn't have to worry about so much as to, well, you can't have this, or you can't have that, or you can't do this, so you don't become too defiant, because there was nothing else to define of. There was no other options to go with other than what the parents were told you to do.
Right, right, right. Um, Next thing, healing and reconnecting with the inner child. Reparenting is about giving yourself the love, care, and support you needed as a child. Examples of reparenting: practicing self-compassion, speaking to yourself with kindness, engaging in playful and creative activities. I got another question for you. If you could go back, if you could go back and comfort your younger self, what would you say?
I think if I had to say anything, it would be to the point where just believe in yourself. I think it's, as I got older and I became a motivational speaker, and I spoke to a lot of the kids in the inner schools that were uh, not necessarily at risk, but because that was not a definition back when I was doing this. But you got kids that are in school now, and I even realized that I wasn't the smartest kid in school. Actually, I was probably on the other side of that fence. But when I went to speak to kids, and I knew that was some of those kids were that was me sitting out there looking at me sitting up here. So when I did my motivational speaking, I would actually use a broad umbrella, say, and I would tell them, I would be honest and say, look, I wasn't that smart in school either. And I know probably some of you feel like you're not as smart, but I said, your worst enemy is not saying anything to your teacher. I said, the teachers are here to help you. Most of them really genuinely care about getting you from where you are to a better person to be, maybe even college if you choose to go that avenue. But I would tell them to, try your best first and don't be afraid to go after school if you had a question with your teacher because it's only going to help you get out of what the situation you're in. Because if you never ask for help, you're not going to ever get any help, and that goes with that kind of with life right now to a point.
Right, right. Yeah, I would go back, and if I had to comfort my younger self, I would just tell myself I love myself and believe in yourself, and I would tell myself my younger self to just be encouraging. You can believe in whatever you can do, and put your mind to it, and do it. So that's about all I would tell my younger self.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's exactly right though, because like I say, even though kind of going this, and I can always reflect back to my situation. It's like I didn't have a terrible, livelihood, but it was just poor. We didn't have anything. But you always believed in yourself. Uh, I was always encouraged to do my best. It may not be the best of somebody else, but it's my best
right.
as a motivational speaker, and that's what I would encourage the kids to do. And I actually kind of going to a different side of the story on this thing. When I would go do my speaking, and I would say, how can I encourage these kids to be all they can be, not better than the next person, but be all you can be. So I came up with the thing is at the time I was working for Gold's Gym, and I was athletic director there. So I had access to a lot of things, that I could use as a tool to help these kids develop themselves to become better, get out of that, like I say, bring that inner child out of them where they can, not sit in that shell of shame. So I would basically say, okay, I go to the school, I would do a speaking, and I would do an exercise class in that auditorium. Sometimes I would do. But in order to get that exercise class, what I would tell them is, that, look, this is what we're going to do. I need for each one of you to raise your grade up one letter. So if you get an F, if you get a D, if you get a C, you get a B. So if you can raise your grade up one letter. I'm not saying everybody get A's because I can't get A's. I knew I
Right.
didn't, but I didn't do that. So I said, just get up one letter. If you were making, like I said, if you were making F's, you can make a D. I'm good with that, because you'll get better. And I said, this is what the promise from me going to be to you. We're going to come out. I'm going to get we'll get a bus. You all are going to do a field trip to the gym. We're going to have refreshments and we're going to have a workout session. And I had those letters today. Actually, Matthew, I'm going to show them to you next time you go to the house.
Okay.
I got letters over the years where kids would send me thank you letters, drawing little pictures of well, say me, muscle man, and they're working out. And it was one of those expiring things. Even I did bodybuilding. I have trophies from bodybuilding, but those letters are my best trophies I've ever won because I can look at them over periods of time. It's like this child was inspired by something that I did and offered them, and most of them did. They actually raised their grade up, but
Wow.
it was a purpose for them to do it. The reward was simple: go to the gym and work out. So that maybe like an hour from school. Maybe that's what they needed. I don't know, but they
Mhm.
were actually, and not just one or two kids stayed. They all improved. They all improved their grades at that point. So I'm like, and this is amazing. But it was just a simple. This is what we're gonna do. If you guys, if you can just get your grade up, one letter is all we need. One letter. But that's kind of goes back to the inner child because for a lot of those kids, it's like, I don't think I can do this. I was told I'm never going to be anything. I'm never going to be anybody. I'm always going to be this. But when I give them that support, and I always tell them, I use this thing for I used to use this motivational speaker, and I used to listen to these motivational tapes all the time, and it was setting goals, the GOAL, and
Okay.
it was an acronym for all of it. And probably on our next podcast, we'll talk about the goal setting of this and what that GOAL stands for. But those kids were really impressed, and when they come out to that school bus roll up to the gym, you talking about some smiles on some kids' faces. It was just electrifying because they knew that they were going to get to train with me, which I'm nobody at that point, but it was inspiring for them because I came out and talked to them. And before then, I don't think there was ever anyone that actually did that. And that's kind of motivated them to do even better because they see who I am. I might could be a personal trainer, or I might could work at a gym. So it developed that inner child. I'm going to do better. I'm going to try to do better and come out of that shell that I was in.
Nice. That's pretty interesting. I mean, that's pretty impressive. Today we explored what the inner child is, how childhood experiences shape us, and ways to reconnect and heal. Remember, this is a journey that takes patience, self-compassion. I guess I got one more question.
Bring
One more
it.
question.
Bring it.
So, what's one insight or takeaway from today's discussion?
It's being open, discuss things that your inner child, you got them locked up in that room. Let that child out, open, explore what's going on to keep that child back, because in reality it's kind of holding you back as an adult or young adult because you still suppressing those feelings and those emotions that you haven't addressed yet. And anything like say baggage will hold you down no matter what it is. It will weigh you down, and it'll also pull you backwards instead of forward.
I was gonna say your inner child can do you more harm. I mean, depending on how you deal with situation and deal with things, it can do you more harm. But what I took away from today's discussion is you just have to got to nurture and love your inner child and basically love yourself.
Yes.
Take care of yourself and be good to yourself. And that way,
and respect yourself.
and respect yourself. When you give yourself what you need, you will be able to, and don't do, a lot of people do a bunch of unhealthy habits. You don't need to do that. But just love yourself and take care of yourself.
It's awesome. That is very good. No, that was pretty much to the point. And bottom line is, a lot of it's me personally, I think, is respect and just never give yourself self-doubt, and always have your standards high for yourself, where you don't feel like you got to settle for less when you can settle for more, even though you may not achieve that more. Don't set that bar so low where it's like, this will do. Just try to see can you achieve more by expecting more of yourself.
Right. Hey, well, man, I appreciate that. And George, as always, I just want to thank you for taking time out of your day.
Oh, I love it. I love talking.
Chop it up with me, man. And I appreciate your time and everything, my brother.
We are back. Having fun.
It's the drip from Miss Strozar.